changes that the Redistricting Board recommended for your consideration. In terms of housekeeping changes, the Bureau of the Census from time to time will change the shape of census blocks. This is of no interest if a block is embedded in the middle of a district. If a block is along the boundary line between two districts and the boundary line no longer follows that block boundary, then you need to consider making some changes or adjustments there. In the single-member plan, there were 4 blocks that abutted boundaries, and we would recommend that you consider changing those. All of the populations here were very minimal in terms of changing. In the at-large districting scheme, there was only 2 blocks that abutted boundary lines between 2 of the at-large districts. So those are sort of housekeeping changes. Those were contained in all of the plans, but in Plan 1 for single-member districts, that was the only change that was made. In Plan 4, which was the plan for at-large districts, that was the only change that was considered there. There were 2 other recommendations from the Redistricting Board concerning single-member districts. One was to move Clearwater Beach and Island Estates from District 4 into District 5. Along with that change, the policy recommendation was to further flatten the boundary line between District 5 and District 4 to follow Sunset Point Road so that District 5 and District 4 are more compact. Compact districts are a common goal in the redistricting process, a common criteria that's used in that process. Proposal 3, yes, sir.
Yeah, and that Sunset Point that you're talking about is really from Keene to McMullen Booth. So it kind of follows that road. To the east and to the west of that, it does jog a little bit, right? I mean,
it does, and this is that line right here. Let me talk about the symbology here. The existing districts are the shaded areas. Under this particular proposal, and which is in your packet, the blue line is the proposed district line, and so it would capture all of Clearwater Beach going into District 5, and then would continue along Sunset Point here and go to
that's at McMullen Booth.
McMullen Booth. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I was clear. Can you go back to the west there?
Yes.
Just real quickly. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Okay. So then it goes up to Keene to Union, and then that goes to the water, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. I didn't mean. I wanted to just make sure I was clear on that Sunset Point piece that you were talking about.
So that was one. This is a policy change for your consideration. Then the other change that was recommended by the Redistricting Board is to further one of the criteria directly embedded in your charter, and that is to follow, where feasible, municipal boundaries when drawing commissioner district boundaries. And so in proposal number 3, the boundaries between districts 5 and 6 and 6 and 7 were adjusted so that portions of the city of Seminole and Pinellas Park are moved so that they are contained all within District 6, and that the city of Largo is completely contained within District 5. Those were not significant portions of those cities, and it's, as you may imagine, impossible to not split the city of St. Petersburg and the city of Clearwater. But in those a few areas there, the intent of this plan was to ensure that those cities are contained within each of certain single-member district boundaries.
Do you have that drawing?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So here, and I can. This is the city of Seminole. And I know this gets a little bit cluttered here, but if you see these areas here, this area here, that is within the city of Seminole, and these boundary lines here and here are adjusted so that Seminole is all within District 6. Then in the portion of District 7, which contains part of, I believe it's Pinellas Park, I think. This area here, parts of the city go into the existing district boundary. And so this line was moved slightly south so that all of Pinellas Park is contained in District 6. Yes, yes. And we were careful. It's not a significant number of persons.
Yeah, on these pages you gave us with the population, I just want to make sure that I was clear that the population white, population black, and population other make up the 100%, and then the population Hispanic is part of the population other? Because it doesn't
no.
add up to 100.
That's correct. That's right. Black and white are people who identify themselves as being a single race, black or white person. Other is, in terms of race, every other possible permutation of race. It could be other races, individual races, Native American, Asian American, or it could be some combination of multiple races. And it could be 2 races up to 6 races that someone has identified themselves as being. And so I will say that one thing that was very obvious in this census as compared to previous census, the number of people who indicated that they were multiple race has grown significantly. And nationally, it was up by 270%. Perhaps some people who previously had indicated that they were single race white or single race black now checked off other. So that's what other is. Hispanic is not a race, but an ethnicity. And so you could be white Hispanic, black Hispanic, or something else.
So they could be embedded in any of the numbers?
They are.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
If you want to get to the total, it's other, black, and white. That's the total.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Go ahead.
Then as we were saying, the third recommendation in terms of single-member district was to adjust the single-member district boundaries so that all of these cities, where possible, were contained within one district boundary. And that is a guidance in the charter. It's not mandatory, but it's a directive to the redistricting board. And it's a common criteria anyway in the normal process.
And you looked at the first proposal 2 and then proposal 3 independently were given to us, but you could conceivably do both.
You could.
One or neither, right? So,
you could.
Okay.
We would recommend that you consider that at least the housekeeping changes. It's more of a ministerial sort of a change. But beyond that, you could consider the Clearwater Beach adjustment along with the adjustments in proposal number 3, which attempted to not split municipal governments.
And it doesn't affect the numbers if we did both?
Not in a significant way. All of your numbers, by the way, including the existing plan, are very good. They are well within acceptable tolerances in terms of deviations from the mean. So.
Okay. Any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Peters.
No, thank you. I think they did a really good job in a very quick time. I do like the idea of compactness in proposal 2, but I also would support the housekeeping to keep each city kind of whole. So I like the combination of 2 and 3 to be considered on the single-member districts. I think it just makes sense to not have Seminole or Pinellas Park would have 2 different ones for one little section. And
right.
Yeah, I think that gets confusion. And Largo, I think it's like 4 precincts or something like that. It's pretty minor.
It is. In terms of population, the area that moved from District 7 into District 6, right along this boundary here, was the most significant. That's about 2,100 people that were moved there. All of the other ones were less significant. And even with these changes, it does not affect the deviations from the mean in a significant way for any of the districts.
On that 6 and 7 there on the Tampa Bay side, is there it goes up there at the end? Is that adding some of what?
That is just the shape of a census block. I believe this is over the water. Actually,
okay.
It's insignificant.
I couldn't tell. Thank you.
Right.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Seal.
One of the proposals had instead of Sunset Point Road going to Enterprise, and early on, that was presented in one of the newspaper articles. What happened to that?
There was one plan early on when just Clearwater Beach was moved into District 5, and only a corresponding number of people was moved from the countryside area from District 5 into District 4. When we started looking at that, we considered, why not try to flatten that boundary line out a little bit more, and that's how we got to this proposal that was in your packet today. But that plan did not receive the required 6 votes of the redistricting board to make that proposal come to you today.
I like the proposal 3. I agree that putting Largo and Seminole into the appropriate districts is probably good. I do want to say that you're going to separate Clearwater one way or the other. You're going to separate the beach from countryside, and I will tell you that countryside has always felt like they were the stepchild for Clearwater. It's just the way Clearwater annexed and grew, and they were the only ones willing to build countryside at the time and provide sewer and water. So having lived there for over 20 years in countryside, I can attest to that. I won't be here in 2024, so but I would make the argument that one, countryside would probably like to stay where it is, and then second, there is also a swath, especially near Enterprise, of unincorporated neighborhoods. So I always think about the workload that goes on in District 4 and the fact that I had actually thrown out an idea of, and it was really for Districts 4, 5, and 6. It was not reported that way, that maybe look at redoing that and going more north-south, because I do feel like there is a disproportionate amount of work that goes into District 4 because there's large amounts of unincorporated area that are in that district. But, I just wanted to mention that was one idea I had. It would be pretty dramatic at this point.
It would. There was a plan that was considered for a time by the redistricting board that ran the dividing line between Districts 4 and 5 in a north-south manner, so that the unincorporated area in the northern part of the county was split. That, like the other plan, did not receive the required number of votes to come forward. You're not bound by these recommendations.
Right, I know.
And you could consider other things as well.
Okay.
Any other, yeah, Commissioner Peters?
So I understand your thoughts on countryside. I get that. But, when you represent the beaches, when you represent them all, it's congruent. And so I think putting Clearwater Beach in there when you still have all the Indian Rocks beaches makes it congruent that you have all the beach communities. And so I understand what you're saying about countryside, but there's no way to keep Clearwater whole. And I think the compactness of this, it fits the guidelines so much better. But just on the beaches kind of thing, I represent the beaches. I've represented the beaches for a long time. And I think when you have all the beaches, then you understand the whole concept. So, where Clearwater Beach has one person, and then the Indian Rocks have another person, and then the other ones have another person. I like the idea of putting Clearwater Beach with the Indian Rocks beaches, and them having one person in which is their district. So, I don't think you can keep Clearwater whole. I love the compactness of this. I think it fits the guidelines and the purpose that we're supposed to do. And so I do. I still support the housekeeping of 3 and the combination 2. I like 2 and 3.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, when we're looking at